Greetings, enthusiasts. Assalamualaikum, salam, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, may peace and happy be upon us, fellas. And good afternoon.
We finally met again at an event that will increase our insight and understanding of exploration in the field of geophysics, simply and solely in inversion. Organized by the Society of Exploration Geophysicist Student Chapter, University of Indonesia.
Integrated virtual talk with professional inversion is one of SEG UI Student Chapter's flagship work programs, where we hold webinars with professionals. To enhance, we would like to talk about enabling oil and gas producing countries to transition towards low carbon future with Mr. Daren at Benfield as the speaker. There are some rules that the participants need to take note in order for this event to run well. These are the ground rules of this inversion is the first, participants are not allowed to turn on the mic during the presentation session. The participants are not allowed to record events on their respective devices. And the participants are expected to turn on their camera during the photo session and use the provided virtual background. Participants are advised to ask questions in the Q&A session via the link given in the Zoom chat. And the rundown of this inversion will be started by the opening by moderator, and there will be a greetings, and there will be presentation by speaker. Then we will sum up the summary by moderator, and there will be a Q&A session in Slido, and there will be a certificate handover, and finally we will close this inversion.
Hi. Like the previous inversion, we will interact with professionals in the field of geophysical exploration. Today, we are accompanied by Mr. Daren Mathew Benfield. Hello, Mr. Daren.
Hello. Good afternoon to you.
Hello. Good afternoon. How are you, Mr.?
Not too bad. It's just gone 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm in Mecca in Saudi Arabia for this weekend. So, yeah, I'm glad everything's working okay and looking forward to a good session.
Wow, that's great. You are in Mecca right now. Thank you for being speaker here. Okay, so I want to read about Mr. Daren's resume. Mr. Daren here is a geophysicist with over 20 years experience in the oil and gas industry. He has a bachelor degree graduate of Earth Science in the University of Greenwich and a master degree graduate of Petroleum Geology and Geophysics in the University of Greenwich. His past work experience consists of being a processing geophysicist in Robertson Research International, data processing supervisor in Photogation Seismic Imaging Limited, and seismic processing supervisor in Enthusiast.
And it's extraordinary and really piques our curiosity about today's material, isn't it? Before we jump into the presentation, we will do a photo session. I will guide the photo session, so please, for all of the participants, please turn on your camera so we can see your brightest smile. We will wait for all of you to turn on your camera, and we will take the pictures on the count of 3.
Dear participants, can you guys open the camera because we want to take a picture?
on the camera.
Okay, we wait 30 seconds.
Okay, because there has been a lot of participants that turn on their camera, we will start this photo session. We will take pictures on the count of 3. So get ready. 1, 2, 3. Very good. Once again. And 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much. As the opening session of today's event had already ended, let's continue on the main session, which is the presentation session by our speaker, Mr. Daren. And please welcome to Mr.
Okay, let's see. Okay, can you see my screen okay?
Not yet, sir.
Let me know when you can see it.
Okay. The screen
Okay.
still doesn't appear.
You can see it now?
Not yet, sir, for now.
Sorry. Okay, now? Can you
Still
see my,
doesn't appear.
can you see the
Cannot see
presentation?
I still cannot see the presentation.
Can you see now?
Not yet, sir.
Okay, hopefully.
Yes. You can start the presentation, sir. Thank you.
Finally, sorry about that. Okay, Assalamualaikum and Selamat Siang. Thank you for inviting me. And it was through my friend Dr. Adian who first introduced me to doing this. So a quick introduction. I've spent a lot of time in Indonesia, and I love the Indonesian people in the country. My wife's Indonesian. And so I feel a particular connection with you guys. I was discussing with Ardian what I should actually present to you. And I understand that there's geologists and engineers and geophysicists in the audience today. So Ardian's advice was keep it broad, keep it general. The geologists will be happy that there's not too much maths in this today, so that will keep them happy. And so I'm going to start looking at the carbon capture and storage, and then link it into what I do in my day-to-day wildlife in Saudi Aramco. This is just a picture from the Yellow Oasis, which is in the eastern province of Saudi Arabia. So this is one of our little trips out to look at the geology and the desert. So just quickly run through this. So we're going to go through the concept of net zero, what it actually means. A lot of this maybe you've gone through before, and so you may learn something through this. Some of it may be revision for you, and some of you may make you think about other ways of doing things in the outside of your academic life. So then we're going to look at the carbon capture and storage. What makes a good reservoir? Seismic acquisition and processing, and then a case study at the end. And then we'll look to the future about what's actually coming in at the moment. The concept of net zero. This is becoming more and more important in our life. And this is just a nice quote that I lifted. Quite simply, net zero refers to a balance. We need to get a balance between how much carbon dioxide we're producing and how much we're taking away. So we want to get a balance where we're not increasing in carbon dioxide emissions. So we need to find a way to remove them from that cycle. Carbon capture and storage. There are 3 stages. So we process, we take the emissions, we purify them, and then what we're talking about here is geological storage. There's several different ways of doing geological storage. Today we're going to be looking at storing them below the ground in a reservoir. This is just an example from the North Sea, from BP, and they take their carbon dioxide and they take it out to the well and they pump it into a reservoir in the North Sea. What makes a good reservoir? So this picture here is taken in Saudi Arabia. We were out in the Sabga, and we were looking for desert roses, gypsum in here. So this is Sabah, near where we live. It's about an hour's drive away. I thought I'd put in a few Saudi Arabian photos for your enjoyment. So the reservoirs that we're using have similar characteristics to oil and gas. So we've got to make sure that the following properties exist. So we need a thick pay zone. We need a huge amount of reservoir in which to inject the gases. We need to think about lithology and rock porosity. Also permeability, because you want the gas to move and flow through the rock. So there's got to be porosity, got to be high permeability as well. We want to make sure they're homogeneous where possible. If you have anisotropy, if you have a particular fabric which disrupts the permeability, then that's not going to be good for transmitting the gases through that reservoir. So all of these are very similar to what you would get in gas and oil reservoirs. So these are the properties within the reservoir. Similar to oil and gas, or even aquifers, even for water. You need to have a cap rock, which is above the reservoir, some kind of trap, so maybe some kind of synclinal trap, or maybe there's changes in the lithology, so you can get a trap based on the sediment or based on the lithology. And you want to be able to inject the carbon dioxide into those reservoirs. So we've got the properties within the reservoir, and we've got the properties outside of the reservoir. So now we know what we're looking for injecting these carbon dioxide gases. But this cleaner future, which we're working towards, we need to go back to the dark side. When I started in the oil industry as a geologist, they called it the dark side. If you started working in the oil industry, it was the dark side. Now we're going to have to try and revisit the dark side if we're going to move forward. Dark side of the force. You're going to have to come over to what I'm doing, working in Saudi Aramco. Seismic acquisition and locating suitable reservoirs. This photo here is me running in Alula, which is more in the center of Saudi Arabia. And these are Miocene and Neocene carbonates, shales, and marls. So just thought I'd share that photo with you. Broadband seismic it's probably the last 10 years it's really taken off. And the idea is that the more frequencies you get, the better resolution. Before the introduction of broadband seismic, people used to filter back and they used to say, oh, maybe between 40 and 60 hertz. This will give me some higher resolution. So they would limit the bandwidth to try and make it look sharper, which is one way of doing it, but it's not the best way of doing it. So if you take all of the frequencies from 0 to Nyquist and smash them all together, that would give you the best resolution. Because what that would do is it would give you a spike. So you take all your frequencies, if they're at the same level, and 0 to Nyquist, put them all together, you get your spike. That's the best way to get the resolution. So this one here, you can see on the left, you're starting to get higher resolution. And the graph in the bottom right, we're starting to get rid of the side lobes. So the wavelet is looking sharper by the introduction of these low frequencies. So we need the low frequencies as well as the high frequencies. Low frequencies becoming more and more important in the interpretation of reservoirs. So high-res 3D acquisition, we're going to be looking at decoasting in here. So I don't know how much you've gone into the acquisition of the seismic data, but imagine you take a photo and then you move the camera and you take the photo again, one on top of the other, and you get a blurred image because things have moved slightly. So if you have a look at this diagram here, you have the cable, which is the horizontal. You have the sea above. This is marine example. You've got the water, the air-water contact. So you have energy coming up, which is an upgoing wave field. And then you have the energy which goes up, reflects from the from the water, the air contact, and comes down onto the sensor. So it's like taking two different photographs, one after the other, and it's moving slightly. So we're getting a blurred image. this is called the ghost. What the ghost also does is it puts notches into your frequency spectrum. So typically, if you just have a pressure sensor, that's what you'll get. If you can introduce a velocity sensor, which is something that's happened in the last 10 years, by combining these two sensors together, you can remove the ghosting, which is the energy which has gone up to the water-air contact and come down to that sensor. So we can remove that ghost and we can get a clearer image of the data. Also, we don't get the notching in the frequency spectrum. Now that doesn't just happen with the cable. You've got to remember you have guns, and the energy which is coming out of the gun arrays, ideally you want it to go down, but some of it's going to go up to the water-air contact and then come down again and then go up. So you're going to get ghosting two ways. You're going to get ghosting which is associated with the cable and ghosting which is associated with the source. Both of them cause notching. We can remove the ghosting on the cable by using the two sensors, the hydrophone and the geophone, like the velocity sensor. With the source, we have to do something a little bit different to remove that ghost. And this is something that came on a bit later after the improvements in the cable deghosting. So these diagrams here, you've got an upgoing wave field and a downgoing wave field. So the upgoing one is the one that goes up to the water-air contact and back down to the receiver. The downgoing is the energy that goes down and comes up from below, from the geology. Now what we can see here is a frequency spectrum. And you can see that if you take, if you deghost on the source and the receiver side, by summing those two together, what you get is a smoother frequency spectrum, and you get less notching involved. And that's how we're getting our broadband seismic, and that's how the resolution is coming with the data. So this is source deghosting, and you have gun arrays, which are in the water. They're the ones which are producing the energy, the air guns. If you have them at different depths, and then you have the gun arrays go off at slightly different times, you can record that energy. You know what the times are when it's recorded into your shot records. But you'll get a cancelling out of some of the bubble and also some of the ghost. So it's going to reduce the ghosting on the source side and take those notches out of the spectrum. So both of these techniques help to get us our broadband seismic. What I'd like to do, this may be quite complex. This is something maybe we can go over at a later session and look purely at acquisition. But the concept I'm trying to put across is that if we can get a broader frequency spectrum, then by doing that, we can get higher resolution data. And that's going to be a lot better for the interpreters who are going to be looking at those reservoirs. I know I'm going kind of like fast over this, but yeah, another session may be a good idea just on acquisition. And this is source deghosting. So in a way, we're kind of randomizing our ghost functions and we're canceling some of them out. You can see at the bottom, we've got the notching. We've got two ghost functions. from two different arrays at different depths. The notches, because they're at different depths, are going to be different frequencies. We redatum the data. Remember, we've recorded the timing difference between the two guns going off. Once we've redatumed, we sum them together and we get a frequency spectrum which is a lot closer to what we want, broadband seismic. And these are some examples, the sources from PGS, who use their GeoStreamer and GeoSource, which are these two types of decoasting. So the GeoStreamer is the decoasting on the cable side, the receivers. The GeoSource is the additional, where we're doing the decoasting on the source arrays. And you can see that you're getting more sharp data, you're getting more frequencies, it looks clearer. You can see a lot more happening, and that's the idea. Another concept, which has been in pipeline some time now, but it's been done a lot more, is to look at acquisition from different azimuths. So this diagram here shows a boat, which has got maybe 10, 12 streamers behind it, acquiring marine 3D data. And by acquiring over 3 different azimuths, the idea is you can get better illumination. You can get analysis on azimuthal anisotropy. Now, with all rocks, to various extents, there's going to be differences in the properties depending on the orientation. So what I mean by that is that you may have a rock which has been faulted in a particular, maybe a north-south attitude, or it may have fracturing in a certain attitude, a certain direction. You may find that Malay Basin is quite famous for this. You get an orientation of minerals in the shales, and this can cause differences in how you receive the data from the seismic sources. If you acquire your data going in different directions, then in one direction, you may have trouble trying to get your illumination, trying to get your reflections coming back, recorded. If you acquire it in a different direction, you may find that you start getting better reflectivity, clearer shot records. And so this is the illumination. You're trying to find which direction is best to try and get the best results for interpretation. But also you're learning from this where you've got an azimuthal anisotropy. You're getting changes which have developed through the fault, due to faulting, fracturing, or due to the mineralization in a particular direction. So if you do, this is called azimuth rich. It's more expensive, of course, because you're shooting a survey 3 times in this case here. But if you shoot it over an area which you know is of interest, it can be quite worthwhile doing this to get better results for your reservoir. And here's a couple of examples. This is courtesy of Shell. So NAZ is narrow azimuth. So if you're talking about narrow azimuth, you're talking about acquisition, just a single boat going in single orientation. So maybe shooting northeast, southwest over the whole survey. And this is subsalt. So the one on the left is the narrow azimuth. The seismic on the right is wide azimuth. So they've taken in more information. And what you can see is that the illumination, especially beneath that faulting, and on the left, you've got the salt. And there's kind of like a fault coming in on one side of it. You can see there's better illumination coming up, top lapping onto that fault plane. This is very, very important, especially in the Gulf of Mexico, where they've got a lot of salt diapers. And of course, they want to get best illumination that they possibly can, because underneath that salt, that's where you may find some of your reservoirs. So obtaining rich azimuth data is another way in which we can better image the reservoirs and better understand the reservoirs for injecting the carbon dioxide. Seismic processing technologies and some high-res imaging. Okay, just a little bit more on the Saudi picture. This is from Al-Hassa, which is about 2 hours south from where I live. This is my daughter, and these are carbonates and marls, and they're quite famous because some early humans were living in this area here. So it's quite famous in Saudi Arabia, but you get some really good casting and some really good dissolution of the carbonates. So this is mycene and neogene in age. Okay. Full waveform inversion cycle. So this is something that's really taken off in the last couple of years, and in Saudi Aramco, we're starting to use it more and more, especially for modeling velocities, especially in the shallow. So some of the structures in the shallow are very subtle, and some of the reservoirs have channels, river channels, paleo channels, which go through them. You get small fault planes, fracturing, etc. Now, the trouble with velocity analysis, is that in the past, what we've done is we've taken CDP gathers and we've picked velocity functions which would correct for those. And so we get a velocity function over the whole area. So if we're looking at velocity analysis, your CDP gathers are only going to have a few traces in the very shallow. So it's very hard to try and pick velocities in the very top. You haven't got much move out. It's hard to work out what's happening. You may have an initial velocity field. You may have well data in which you can try and determine some velocity data from that. But particularly in the shallow, it's very hard to be able to get an accurate velocity field which reflects the subtle changes and the channels. What full waveform inversion cycle does is it takes initial models, especially velocity models, and it also looks at the elastic properties of the seismic and any well data that we have over that area. And so by taking those two, we can try and fit the model to the elastic model, see how it matches, work out what the difference is, and then feed that into a new model. So we're trying to make a model. It's an iterative process. We model seismic, does it match? Nope. Okay, we're going to try again. And by doing refining of this full waveform inversion, we're getting closer to the geology and the structure, channels, faulting, anything like that. We're trying to get back to the reality. So this is an inversion trying to get back to the actual geology from the seismic. So this is a nice little diagram from Petrologic. So you're taking maybe well data, maybe an initial velocity, maybe some velocities from the wells, information like that, and you're taking any elastic model, any elastic properties that you have in the shallow, the seismic, and you've got a little circle here where you're trying to improve your data, and you're coming out with a better model for improving your data. Here's another picture, the iterative process. Starting model, forward modeling, synthetic data. And we take this cycle around and we output a final model. This is the actual work for over. What you can see on the left, we've got an initial velocity model. We've got something to work with, but it's not accurate. And by going through this process of the full waveform inversion, we can move from B to C, and we can get a very accurate velocity field, especially in the shallow. So this is from 0 to 3.5 seconds in data length. And it's been improved over the whole data length. Shallow through to the deep, we've got a much better idea about what's happening. And then what we can do is we can feed this velocity analysis through to depth migration. So we can get a better seismic section or 3D volume. Again, this is something else which I think it'd be good if we did a whole session on this alone. But this is just to give you an overview of some of the technologies and what can be brought out by applying these technologies. Okay, carbon capture and storage. So we're going to be looking at a case study from the North Sea once again. Now this is at a place called Judah, which is in, it's about 160 kilometers east of where I live and work. And you've got flat deserts. These are neogene and Miocene, carbonates, marls, and shales, some sandstone in here. But this rock stands out in the middle of the desert. And it's due to the differences in the water table when it was deposited. So it just stands there in the middle of nowhere. And it's called the Devil's Thumb because it just sticks out of the desert. Okay, so we're going to be looking at the sleeper field, North Sea, and carbon dioxide monitoring. This is a field where they've done carbon dioxide injection for some years now. And so they've done a survey on it, and they want to know how things are changing. So they're injecting the carbon dioxide into the reservoir. They want to know how the carbon dioxide is expanding, what's it doing to the structure. Can they still keep injecting carbon dioxide? Is there a limit, etc.? So in this case, what they've done is taken a survey from I think it's 1999, and it was processed again in 2016, and then it was reprocessed again, but using broadband technologies and the velocity updates, which the broadband seismic is given better velocities. The company is called Equinor, and the data type, this was before the introduction of the velocity sensor. So this is just hydrophone cables. Now this here is the field. And these are attributes which have been taken out of a 3D volume. So you can see the brightening, which has been caused by the carbon dioxide. And you can see that there's more purple color, which is expanding outside of the original interpretation. The white line is from the 2016 interpretation. And you can see that in the last 20 years since it was done, that the purple is expanding out from that, which is what we're expecting. We're injecting carbon dioxide into that reservoir. A little bit of background. Okay, a little bit of background. Got carbon dioxide stored in sleep now, accumulates at the top of the Azimuth formation. So, which is a saline reservoir with 40% porosity. Beneath it, you have thin shales coming in, which of course is not good for a reservoir. So the original seismic had difficulty trying to work out what the extent of the carbon dioxide was. What they found by reprocessing the data and using broadband seismic technology was that the carbon dioxide increased up to 200, 300 meters away from 2016. So the 2020 reprocessing took the advantage of the broadband, and the velocity field was repicked to take into account the broadband techniques, but also the changes which were being caused by the carbon dioxide being injected. Okay, these two pictures here show seismic NMO-corrected gathers along a seismic 2D line taken out of the 3D. So it's a lot of CDP gathers which have been NMO corrected with normal move out. And you can see the top, that it's not looking flat. The move out hasn't corrected the data, so the velocity field is not correct. However, down below, with the broadband seismic technology and the repicked velocities, the CDP gathers that you've got through that section are looking more flat. And that means you're going to get better resolution. So this is part of the processing in the 2016, and you can see the brightness in the section, which has been caused by the carbon dioxide. So you can see the well that's been annotated coming down through that, and the where it's being injected into that reservoir. Now the problem with this section is it's a bit noisy. Some of it's not too coherent. It's hard to interpret some of the horizons coming through that section there. The other thing I noticed about this section is that there's a lot of multiples which are coming down from that, that reservoir. So you can see like reverberations, periodicity in the seismic coming down through that. And obviously the multiples which are coming from that, that's not something that we want in the data for the imaging. So ideally, we want to remove the multiple, and we want to get clearer image of that reservoir. So this is the 2016 processing. Now this here is the 2020 reprocessing. And what I hope you can see here is that there's some more continuity in the seismic, especially at depth. I just flick between the two. You can see the continuity in depth and even in the shallow. With the reprocessing, it's looking a lot better. That could be because the velocities are better, but also because we're using broadband seismic techniques, our wavelet is sharper. So you're beginning to see the horizons a lot clearer. Now, what you can also see here is that you can map the base of the Utsira reservoir. Before, it was kind of hard because you had that multiple reverberation, that periodicity going through that reservoir. So it's kind of a bit muddled. You can't really say for sure. Now this one here, we're pretty certain because the change in the character and also tying it to the well. We're tying this to the well data. We can see that the base of the reservoirs looking a lot clearer. And we've got a lot more character and a lot more to interpret in this new section. Here's another one here. So this is the 2016. On this one here, admittedly, the continuity is a bit better. It's not so noisy. We've got some multiple energy coming through here. Still some noise. Now, if we have a look here at the 2020 reprocessing, sorry about this bit of background interference. I'm getting heckled by the back. The reservoir is looking a lot clearer. Beneath the reservoir is looking a lot clearer. Let's just flick between the two. On this one here, beneath the reservoir, you can't see what's happening to that horizon that's coming in the deep. But now we can see better continuity from that horizon. And you can see that it's a lot clearer, especially the base of the formation. And this has been matched with the well data. So we know exactly where the top and the base are. And we can interpret that data better. The future. So this is once again, going back to the Subcode. This is with my family digging up gypsum desert roses in the Subcode. Artificial intelligence. This is something that's come up in the last 3 or 4 years, and it's getting very, very, sorry about this. It's getting very important, and it's being increased, especially with the computers, which are getting a lot more nodes, faster computers. And artificial intelligence is taking over some of the work that we do. So if you give it a model and work out what you expect from it, it can iteratively learn about the processing. So this could be a velocity model. It could be attributes that have been taken from the data. It could be multiple models, etc. And so you can either supervise the artificial intelligence, or you can let it go away and just do iterations itself. And the computers learn as they do this, and they start to build the better models. So artificial intelligence, it's been called the 4th industrial revolution. It's going to take up a lot of what we're doing, a lot of the model building. And it's going to make our lives easier. It's going to make the timing of getting products to the interpreters a lot quicker. So this is something you might hear of. But again, it's something maybe we can do another session with later on. So here's another diagram here, courtesy of Shell. So they're talking about deep learning. So it's looping around. And it's learning about the different models in order to get a better final product for the geophysicists and then the interpreters. So this is something new, and it's going to be very big in the industry. This is something which is very new. Actually, a very good friend of mine, Fabio Mancini. He's working for Woodside in Australia. And rather than having cables being towed behind the vessels, what they're doing now is they're taking autonomous submersibles with geophones. So the geophones are like you were doing a land survey. They're not hydrophones. And so what they can do is they can send out these semi-autonomous submersibles with instructions about where to deploy, send them out, they go down, they deploy on the seabed. Now you've got a kind of quasi land survey. You've got geophones which are attached to the substrate. And then what you can do is you can have the source being towed at the, by a boat on top of the water, but the energy is actually being recorded by the semi-autonomous submersibles. So this is something that's really, he's having a lot of fun with this, by the way. Who wouldn't? It's really good technology, and it's something to watch out for, especially if you read up on Woodside and what they're doing. Fabio Mancini is the guy who's working on this. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your participation. It's been, I know some of this has been gone over very fast. I just wanted to give you a flavor of some of the things that are being done in the industry, which sometimes there's a disconnect between academia and industry. So I've thrown a few things out there to you. And as I say, what I hope is that we can, maybe at a later date, we can dive into doing a few sessions just on acquisition or just on processing, and show you what's in the industry and what we actually do within Saudi Aramco. This photo here is of the Judah, the Devil's Thumb, and that's the Milky Way, which was just above it. So with that, I'd like to thank Amanda and Adnan for their help in this. They've been fantastic and give me a lot of ideas and a lot of help, a lot of thoughts on what to put across. So I would like to thank them very much for what they've done. And with that, I'd like to throw this open to the floor and take some questions. And if you feel that what I've done here has been helpful and you'd like some more information, maybe it's something that we could look at a later date if you'd like to have me back. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. That is extraordinary, and that's really adds to our insight regarding geophysical exploration. And thank you to Mr. Daren for the very insightful presentation. And we are sure that the participants here are still curious about today's theme.
To summarize, this webinar is talking about the carbon capture storage, especially in geoscience point of view. There are 3 stages that make up carbon capture storage: process, purification, and geological storage. For geological storage, the important properties within a good reservoir include Poisson thickness, lithology, rock porosity, rock total compressibility, homogeneity, anisotropy, and rock permeability. It's an important thing to research and analyze about the reservoir characteristics because it can be used for the storage. Other than that, the seal or trap is also important. The technologies used for the characterizing reservoir can include broadband seismic, like in slide 3, azimuth anisotropy, and full waveform inversion. In the future, artificial intelligence can be implemented as a provision or operation during the processing of model building. Let us continue until our next session, the Q&A session. For those who want to ask Mr. Daren, we would like to remind that participants are welcome to ask through the Slido link given by the comment in the Zoom chat. Due to the limit time, the moderator shall choose the most likely questions to be answered by Mr. Daren. Don't forget to fill out your name when making the question, because only lucky non-anonymous participants who ask in the Q&A session will get a gift by the comment. Thank you. So we can start the Q&A session.
Okay, let's have a look at, got some questions coming in. One from Fikan Mohammed, and he's asked, what are the distinct advantages between carbonate reservoirs and other reservoirs? To be honest, it's not really about what makes up the reservoirs. It's about the porosity and the permeability. So you can have carbonate reservoirs. You can have, of course, you can have sand reservoirs or conglomerate reservoirs. There are even some places in the world which have volcanic reservoirs, where the volcanics have been shattered, and you can use, and they have been used as reservoirs. So yes, maybe carbonate is, it depends. It can be, it can have dissolution. It's slightly weaker than maybe having a sand reservoir. But the main thing is the porosity and the permeability, how we get the reservoirs to have the gas or the carbon dioxide flow through them. That's the important thing. So yeah, it doesn't matter what they're made of. Those are the important characteristics. Of course, if you've got carbonate, you may have, as with sand and volcanics, you may have secondary porosity due to fracturing. Carbonates, you may have dissolution, which has made it more porous. I think in the Malay Basin, there's a carbonate reservoir. I can't remember the name of it offhand, but it's got about 50% porosity. But the main thing is that you've got good porosity and good permeability, a good flow for the gas or the fluid in that reservoir. I hope that helps. Cecilia Patra, is there a different criteria to find reservoirs for carbon storage, or is using depleted oil and gas reservoir for storaging the common practice? It's kind of like the same criteria, to be honest, because the porosity and the permeability for the gas and the oil is going to be utilized by for the carbon dioxide. And for a long time, what we've done is enhanced recovery, whereby with your oil or your gas, you're producing wells. You'd have other wells which are spread around the reservoir and actively pumping in water or gases. So that's been done for some time. At the moment, I mean, it's preferential to use depleted oil gas reservoirs, because traditionally an oil company has got a lot of information on those reservoirs. During the life of the extraction of the oil and gas, they've obviously done a lot of work, and they know about those reservoirs, they know how they work. So yes, there would be some preferential use of those reservoirs for carbon storing, because they've got a lot more information on it. That doesn't mean to say they could use reservoirs which haven't been used in the oil and gas industry, but most of them are, because they know the information about them. Oh, we've got an anonymous here. What do you think about geophysical methods in future exploration? Is it possible to develop other methods which are more environmentally friendly? I mean, it's difficult. Seismic is invasive because you are setting off a high amount of energy, be it in air guns in the water, or if it's dynamite. Less so with VibroSeis. If you're using a land source such as VibroSeis, that's less invasive. And you've also got geophysical methods like gravity models, electromagnetics, and they're a lot more environmentally friendly. As time goes by and those technologies become more advanced, maybe that's something that we'll be moving more and more to, away from the seismic. So yes, I think that we will get more environmentally friendly in time, but at the moment, seismic is one of the best ways to see what's down there. How do we bridge that gap as an academia and those who are in the industry? That's a big question, and it's always been a question, purely because you're being taught by academics who have done the research, etc. Taking that research and sending it into the oil industry, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't get through, but there is a disconnect between that. And I would like to see more people in the industry giving talks about what we're doing hands-on. You're learning the theories, but sometimes you don't have the software or the compute to be able to do this. So by having a connect, by having maybe linking university with a particular oil company or any industry, that would be fantastic. And there's got to be this transfer of information between the two. It's going to benefit the industry and it's going to benefit academia. So I think it's very important, and hopefully that will increase with time. And if you want to have me back at any time, I'm sure I'll be very happy to do that. If you feel that what I'm giving you is useful. Another anonymous one, what are the difficult and challenges while implementing full waveform inversion in field exploration? Well, it takes a lot of compute. It takes a lot of compute to be able to do this. And it's only recently that the speed of the computers has actually caught up. The theory has been around for a long time, as in most cases. The theory has been there, but we've not been able to use it, to utilize it, because we haven't got the compute. Saudi Aramco's had a new computer installed last year. It's the 10th fastest computer in the world. And it's really helping us with working in the full waveform inversion side of things. So there's always a lag between the idea and getting the compute which is able to do that. Anonymous, why is there no growth of carbon dioxide in the east area of the Sleeper field? That depends. That's a good question. It depends on the extent of the reservoir and the reservoir properties. Now, what wasn't shown on the attribute map was it could have been fault bounded. There could have been a fault bound on one side. It looked like there was a lineation on one side. I'm guessing here because I don't actually know. But that lineation could mean that it's fault bounded on the east side. If it was fault bounded and the reservoir is coming against an impermeable substrate, then you're not going to get that migration. It seems to be migrating in the other areas, but just not so much in that part there. And that could be structural. It could also be that there's changes, lateral changes in the reservoir. So what you may find is that the porosity or the permeability drops off over one side. So maybe it becomes diachronous and it starts becoming more shaly or more like clay, and you may not get that porosity and permeability. So that could be a reason. So good question, and I'll have a look at it and see if I was right. Okay. In oil exploration, especially in onshore, there's also water issue. Yeah, good point. That comes from the subsurface to the environment. How to handle it? Yes, this is something that you don't want your waste getting into the water table, drinking water, etc. So this is something that has to be very, very carefully handled. Needs to be looked at. You need careful. Sorry about this. I'm being heckled. Okay, go and see mommy. Sorry about that. Where were we? So yes, it's very, very important that you have to handle that water issue. We're not going to make any friends if we start contaminating the water table and getting drinking water, etc. So But that comes down to the interpretation of your reservoir. How deep's the reservoir? Is it below where the water table is? Is there any chance that there's going to be some contamination? Are there faults going through which could bring up the carbon dioxide or the oil or the gas into the water table? So very, very careful interpretation needs to be done in order to stop that. So, and naturally, the oil industries work very, very hard on that because bad press is not good for anyone. So yes, we need to look at that issue very, very carefully. Okay. Any more questions? The top 7. Are there any more questions? Are there any more questions, Amanda or Adnan? I'm not seeing.
Dear participants who want to ask, there is still a chance. You can ask from the Zoom chat.
And also, if you think of a question outside of the session and you've got something that you want to know some more about, then feel free to contact me. I think on my CV there's an email address. So if you want to, if you think of something I wish I'd asked that during the session, I'm available if you want to ask me any questions as well.
Okay, sir. I think that they have another question yet. So we will close this Q&A session, and if there are anyone who want to ask, we will give your another chance to ask. And thank you for everyone for the questions. Unfortunately, this is the last question. And for Mr. Daren, before we close this Q&A session on this inversion, for the participants who are still curious and haven't had time to ask, please share your curiosity in the next inversion. And we would like to thank you, Mr. Daren, once more for delivering an excellent topic regarding today's theme and also for answering our questions. Therefore, we would like to show our appreciation to you with a certificate of appreciation by SEG UI SC's President, Cecilia Patra.
Thank you very much. And I've enjoyed it as much as I hope you have. And hopefully we can do this again sometime. This was a broad presentation over many, many subjects.
Sure, thank you, sir. And I will get the certificate and offer.
Brilliant, thank you very much.
Okay, we will take a pictures on the count of 3, sir. I will start. 1, 2, 3. Okay, very good. Once again, sir. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Okay, and I cannot believe we've come to the end of today's inversion event. And I think we've both learned a lot today. And is that right, Tasha?
That's right, Adnan. In addition, we would like to express our deepest gratitude to Mr. Daren, who was pleased to be present as a guest speaker in Inversion this time. Last but not least, we would also like to thank all the participants and Earth enthusiasts who have been enthusiastically attending this inversion.
And once again, we remain all of the participants to fill in the attendance link to get an e-certificate. Hopefully, the knowledge that we gain from today can be useful for all of us. And see you in the next inversion. With SEG USC, let's ignite the spirit.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr.
Thank you so much, Mr. Daren.
Thank you for sharing and explaining.
No
Thank
problem.
you, Mr. Daren.
Thank you.
For the participants, you may have to leave the Zoom because the version have ended. Thank you so much for your participation today.
For the participants, you can leave the Zoom meeting. Thank you for attending Inversion 2 and see you in the next Inversion.